Welcome to the Alternative Highs Podcast, number one podcast in Southwestern Ontario. Today I'm sitting with Cody McLean. He is a financial planner.
Yeah.
I usually go into a introduction, and I thought about ours today, and a friend of mine who is extremely important to me told me about you a while ago. And she was like, I really think that you guys need to podcast. And I'm scared when people say that because I'm like, it's hard for flow. And it took a bit, and we would meet on a friendlier level that was just out for supper. And then we got to a golf game, and I was like, man, because let's be honest, your age demographic isn't typically as a successful as a financial planner, because what you said, it was a 55 was typical.
Average advisor or financial planner in our industry is around 55.
Okay, so when you were giving me those, I was like, I'm 40-year-old guy that's, I'm not, what's the word I want to use? It's hard when you're trying to talk finances and you're
much younger.
Maybe I was a little, but the more I talked to you, I was like, man, this guy's got it going on. Like, I really dig it. I like the way you present yourself.
Thanks.
You're very well spoken. So I thought today's podcast would be a value podcast. So we could speak on, what it is to have a financial planner, why it's important, what people should do, what people should know. And when we were doing our meeting, I was like, this is like, I'm 41, I should probably know some of this, but I don't.
And you're not alone in that, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the most common thing I hear, is that people are scared to ask questions or not know something.
So what's the most common mistake people make when starting out? Like, what's the...
Ooh. At the stage of like trying to plan retirement, or just
plan? You can go right from the start of finance, using your money to make you money, or how you want to budget it. So
sure, I could definitely go through kind of like, there's four major phases, right? Like, the beginning is like early years of income, which is like, it's not super high. It's mostly like debt, like you have a lot of debt, school debt, all that stuff.
Yep.
And so like, it's really, at that stage, it's really important to try to save little bits along the way at smaller amounts that will compound long term. And then once you're in mature earning years, where you're like, 35 and 40s, and you have established income and you can save a lot more. But now you're making decisions like, okay, now you might have a pension and you might have some RSPs. And so the decisions you make at that point also have an impact, 30 years from now, from a tax point of view, of how you eventually start to pay yourself. And so closer to retirement, around like, let's just say 60, 65, you're making decisions like, okay, so when can I retire? So how much do I need? And then how do I get the money to myself in the most tax efficient way possible as well? And then the big question most of the time, people are like, do I take CPP? Do I take old age security? Or when do I do those things? And so there's different factors that come into that. Everyone's situation is very different, because these are all situations that if you're in good health and you're capable of still working, or you're capable of living the lifestyle you want to live into retirement, then everything's good, as long as you have your health.
How do the starting years, how do they figure that part out? Like, should they look into planners right away? Is it...
Yeah, so they definitely need some financial advice, like a good starting point for most people in their early years, depending on their income level. So if they're making okay money, but like say middle class money, they can save decently at with a financial advisor at a bank, or even do something with themselves through like a trading app or something like that, just to save like maybe $100 a week or something smaller. But they do need financial advice. Like, because a lot of the times, especially in your younger years, it's about fast money. Sometimes people want to be like, they're seeing, especially in this day and age, they have like, you know, TikTok stars and they have like all these influencers who are just giving them so much information. And then they see themselves in comparison to like, you know, look at the guy who fought this weekend, or like Jake Paul and stuff, right? Like you have all these people who are like giant cars and money and success in this way, in their own way, right? And so you kind of get stuck in that rat race of trying to just start to make money and save money. So sometimes people make a mistake by doing a lot of it themselves, and they make some financial decisions where they invest without having the time or the knowledge or experience with investments. So that's where they usually get burned once or twice.
And obviously this is a very easy question to answer, but how important is the research in the investments that you do?
It's critical.
Yeah,
like you have to do a deep dive analysis as to like time frames and what the money represents to that person, right? So when you're younger, this might mean that I need this money for a down payment on a home. Okay, so when would you like to achieve that? What kind of home price range are you looking at? And then you kind of reverse engineer it, and then you decide like the risk level and the detail of the portfolio should be suited to that goal. So if you have like 5 years out, we're not going to put you in something that's going to like shoot up to 50% returns and then shoot down to negative 35. Like that kind of, you can't have these swings within a shorter time frame, but you can kind of balance and juggle multiple goals at the same time.
Finding the consistency and what their goals are. That's interesting.
Yeah, so goals are related to the portfolio analysis, because if we do one shoe fits all situation, doesn't work with investments. They have to, especially with people's risk tolerances and the motivators. So like whether it's fear-based or greed-based. When you're younger, it's probably mostly greed-based, and also depends on your lifestyle and how you grew up. But they're looking to make as much money as possible, and that sounds great. But let's do this responsibly, and like, you know.
How do you rein that? Like
rein that in?
Yeah, say you're gonna work with me. I am extremely off the walls, make funny calls, but I'm genuinely a guy that stays in his lane but has a lot of questions.
Questions are good though, because then that leads to a conversation, and then I can explain to you the method or the philosophy behind why we're doing this, and then getting back to the root of like what you came to the financial planner for, which was to get something done within a certain time frame and help you manage your goals.
Is it realistic to say that there's not a good time to ever have a good financial planner, like at any point in your life? Like 41, you and I are having the conversation right now.
It's a good time.
Is there ever too late? Is there, you should have?
I've had 2 late conversations, but it's so I've met with like new clients recently in their 80s, and you know, a lot of what they've done to grow their wealth has been great, but now it's a different conversation. We have less controllables when it comes to tax on their income now. We have controllables as to how we affect their estate. So it's kind of a different point of view of like looking at it. So if it's never a good time, so when you're younger, you have a lot of time. So anything you could have a lot of time to make up mistakes, a lot of time to save. If you know the markets are down, and within a 10-year period, you still have 35 years before you retire, so you still can make up the difference. But I think that a big mistake I started to realize recently, because I did a seminar 2 weeks ago, and one of the questions that came out in this, I was kind of surprised, but when someone retires, they immediately think that everything has to be low risk, and depending on the person, but if they don't have enough money to live off of for the next, say, 25 or 30 years into retirement, they might have to change their risk tolerance and use different strategies, like something called like bucketing, or strategies in order to accommodate their income. So that's, sometimes they immediately just switch to, I'm retired, I need to be conservative. And then they put all their eggs in this one conservative basket for like at 3% returns.
How hard is that for you to have that conversation when you are who they hired, and they're saying, I want to go here, and you like, hey, this is the road that you should be on right here?
Luckily, I'm not kind of doing it alone. Like I prove it to them through like software and and calculations. So it's easier when you get to show somebody. And just linking it back to always like what that actually represents to them and their lifestyle. Because like if you've told me that you want to live this grand and lifestyle, or you want to live the same way, you want to stay in the same house for a while, you want to spend time with your kids and your grandkids, like whatever that vision of what your retirement looks like is going to be linked to financial decisions. So if you want to achieve those, you still need my direction when it comes to how we build this portfolio. Because otherwise they won't. I'll show them what happens if we go down the other route, and whether they achieve it or not.
So when trying to
AI helps a lot with that actually. So like AI technology.
That is amazing.
Yeah, we have like platforms like financial planning software that is all incorporated within AI. So it will pull in, it'll solve problems and find problems to bring to people's awareness.
Okay.
Yeah.
When people are, and again, like we're fresh into our relationship.
Yeah.
So when people are trying to figure out how much of their income, because it's a monthly, is it how often do they invest their funds? Like, does it come off their paycheck? How does that?
We can do it based on what is most comfortable to the person usually, and I kind of gauge whether the person's kind of like, or the couple, the family is at their stages, whether they're spenders or they're savers. And savers are very easy to deal with because they'll just start depositing weekly, monthly, whatever works on their paycheck or in lump sums. But with spenders, it has to be focused around like very much their paycheck.
Yeah.
Because if they're spenders, they will just go through most of their paycheck.
And
they'll live off of like credit cards for the month and they pay them off at the end of the month, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So everyone's different, but
what's like the healthy? Is there a percentage? It's a healthy percentage that you should be taking off to put in? Or is it all based on everybody's income?
Based on their income and their goals and time frame, right? So we have, if you were making like 6 figures, my goal is to optimize taxation. So if you're making a certain tax bracket, and we know that you're going to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire, I want to kind of gauge that gap and save that amount. The maximum amount you can put into like an RSP is 18% of your income, but there's many years that you may have never put into it, and that's cumulative.
Okay.
So it builds up over years.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So sometimes I've run into situations where they just make way too much, and that's great. But like once you make over, say, $235,000 a year, you're taxed at 54%. So it takes a lot of money going into RSPs to get a deduction and try to get some of your money back. And sometimes it's great too, once we do get your money back, then you can use your tax return money and then reinvest and grow it again.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then recontribute for the next year. So it can kind of snowball going forward too.
Where do you like to lean people? Where do you, like, young blood, hungry, you're going against the grain of your typical financial player? How do you get people's attention? How do you say, I'm the choice, I'm the guy?
Yeah, a certain amount of confidence is good. But I think one of my strengths that came really early on through like having mentorship is great. But I noticed that I'm very analytical and I like a lot of detail and I have a passion for knowledge. Like I love learning things. So that was like something that came very easy to me in finance, that I could, I would always want to know why and how we're doing this and how it all works together, like how the economy affects this and all these different variables. So when I look at sitting down with someone, like I know what I'm talking about because I didn't want to talk about it until I knew everything about it. And there's plenty of things that I don't know. So it's good. It's nice to have resources and mentors and people to go to get information.
Yep.
Luckily, like I also have a kind of a diverse background in finance. Like I spent, all of my career in finance, except for like if you count in high school, but I started very young.
You're at the bank first.
Yeah. I started, like, there was things that led up to that, like jobs. And then I started my career at the bank very early on. So that helped me a lot to kind of going from everything from a teller to a mortgage specialist and having ideas of complex credit, doing agricultural loans, working with dealerships. And so I can see all these different parts and moving pieces, but then everything that all those businesses and transactions all had some sort of relationship to a family. And so that's why I chose like personal financial planning, because like
I was gonna say, what brought you into that? Because
yeah,
the bank seems like a cool place to go, but like, I mean,
Yeah.
with this, you have a lot more open life to run do the family life,
yeah.
do
Yeah,
the-
so I can spend more time with my daughters, and like that's nice. So freedom is there,
Yep.
because even though I work with an investment firm, we're all subcontractors, so to speak, or self-employed at our firm. So there's no targets or pressures, or no expectations for you to give anyone any sort of level of a product or service. It's really yours to make, and so like I focus a lot on relationships.
I
And,
like that.
Relationships are like the key to giving good advice, because the numbers for people who are very like analytical, or even just people in finance in general, like my experience when I was younger, like loading up an ATM with a couple hundreds of thousands of cash, and like tangibility of cash meant nothing to me. Like eventually, and I saw that people could see the numbers on the screen aren't tangible to me until I understand the person.
Okay.
And so like I can make decisions with numbers. But it has to be related to the person and their family, because I'm not going to be as emotionally invested into it unless I understand the emotional investment from the person.
Okay.
Yeah. And that could be a business owner too, right? So if they're selling a business or mom and pop shop or something, and it's been like generational, that transaction could be, I can solve tax problems with it. We can structure things to make sure that the dissolution of the company happens in a tax efficient way, but it also means that this is a third generation family, and they're very tied to this. This is emotional. This is an emotional, pivotal moment.
And you can get emotional with it, or
yeah. I like to I typically numbers wise I'm not.
Yeah.
But once I understand what it means to them, I can get
the relationship.
I understand the relationship
I like
now.
that. Okay. I noticed that you said a word a few times, and you lean taxation's like is that your specialty?
Yeah, I'd say that's like my passion with it. Because if I can't, I love to always give the average of people love to see like 20% returns on their investments, but they also want like 50% tax savings.
Okay.
So one, you can calculate and you can guarantee a tax savings if you know how to do tax planning. But then the other one is completely up to the market.
Yeah.
So one, you can guarantee 50% savings or 20% returns, and this one happens sometimes.
Okay.
So I focus heavily on tax, because if I do my due diligence with the numbers and I manage my clients' funds appropriately with them, that we can get them that savings long term.
I had no idea. When we had our conversation at the table a couple weeks ago, it was surprising how important it was. I feel
it's around everything you do.
I can never understand how far behind I am in life. And it's not until I have these conversations. I mean, never did you make me feel stupid. Never at all.
That was never a goal.
It was, how didn't I ask these questions before? So how did you, at 28 years old, you've been in finance your whole career. Mm-hmm. Was this a decision you made in school? What got you to want to be here?
Wow. I did not make this decision in school. Well, I was in school while working at the bank.
It's a sexy job. I get the thought behind it. You get dressed nice. You look beautiful.
We all sound the same. We all look the same. So it's like talking to a realtor, right? Like we all have like the finance people and the realtors. They all have like different lingo and acronyms. Like, sure, it sounds like that. But
it's something. It's not easy. It's not, and it's like, as a guy that started out selling transports at 21 years old, this is literally the hardest job to do, because no guy is gonna come to a younger man and buy his. And I'm assuming that it's hard it was hard for you in the start, in the beginning, or is it just something you fell into and you got lucky? You had people's attention.
I think a little bit of that. I think it takes both, right? Like if you're unprepared, then no amount of luck is going to be good for you. Mm-hmm. You have to be prepared and a little bit lucky when it comes to this. You know what I mean? Like if you don't have any of the tools equipped to be able to have those conversations or do anything with it,
that makes a lot of sense.
Like you could be lucky in like a UFC match, but like if you didn't prepare, preparation is much more important. So
I could tell by our conversations that you've got a bunch of knowledge up there, and then you can use your software to show you more. I appreciated that about you, and I did put a little pin in the bubble because I wanted to know, how did you come to want to be in finance?
Yeah. When I was in school, I was not in finance or business when I was going to school. It was
Did you go to college or university?
University, yeah, I went to Guelph.
What did you do?
History, philosophy.
You're a philosopher?
So that was like I wanted to be like Indiana Jones, basically. Like I wanted to go around the world and write books and like talk to people about it. I was passionate about history. And then when I got into the bank while I was in university, I started to like asking more questions because I was like this, similar to everyone else. They were like, they just didn't know.
Yeah.
But I wanted to understand and know more. So I got more engaged and I researched and I wrote licenses and I became investment licensed pretty young, and then I kept going from that and I noticed a lot of even tenured people at the bank were very like, this is like in every career, so I'm not just saying about the bank, but in every career there's someone who's like pushing buttons and just clocking in, clocking out. And I just was not that kind of person when it came to giving advice. And so then once I got to realize that because I was in a lot of sales jobs before, I had a skill set with people, and I had the right like morals and ethics to like go down this way. And then I just had to make certain decisions along the way to eventually pivot away from, like, say, a corporation like a bank, just from misalignment. And so now being independent, it helps a lot better.
Yeah, that's I like that. That's great.
Yeah.
So and I put another pin in earlier. There's 4 pillars you said. We got to the first 2. What were the last 2?
Oh, for the pillars of life stages?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, so we have early years, middle, like mid to
40s.
mature earning years, and then there's retirement, and then there's estate and legacy. So once you're in retirement, like now we had to understand your retirement paycheck. Yeah.
Do you go right from
what I ideally would like to have in my practice, and I try to do this as like a full family office approach, right? So I want to have generational wealth planning, because if I'm helping out, say, mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, and then eventually things trickle downwards after they pass, if the other people aren't set up with the same amount of knowledge that we spent all these years working on, then it's all to nothing. There's a old saying, it's called like t-shirt, short sleeves to short sleeves. Within 3 generations, everyone's broke again.
Interesting.
So there's one generation to make all the money, and then there's another generation to maintain it, and then the 3rd generation squanders it. It's an old saying. So short sleeves to shirt sleeves is the concept in our business. So like, if you don't prepare every generation with the right advice and get them ready, then you can make massive improvements in families over long generational periods. And that's actually my advantage of being so young, because I have like the years to watch mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, and I can work with all the kids going down the line.
I was gonna say, how does that conversation go when mom and dad are trying to, or grandma and grandpa are trying to introduce the kids, and the kids are, I can do this. You don't need him.
Well, it's even
when
just
it's all done or something.
Yeah.
Is that a conversation?
Yeah, sometimes it is. Like the kids they might already have someone they're working with, which is okay. But I still want them to know what it is we're doing and making the decisions we are doing now and showing something different. Because when it comes to that conversation about estate and legacy, it's part of my process to, onboarding new clients, is to go through their wills and power of attorneys and have them reviewed and then updated. And so that way we can make sure that, okay, now I'm talking to this person face to face. What is it you want from this? Not after the fact, after they passed away, right? So then if they introduce me to their kids, then it's a good kind of pivoting point to say, like, I've been working so many years with your mom and dad. This is what we're working on now. I'm happy to help you out with, while you're, like, say you're just starting a new engineering job or whatever, and you're younger, in your 30s, and you're making money, and you need some advice. So then if they become a client, and then the whole family gets under one family group. And then it helps from a business point of view, it helps preserve my business.
That's right.
But it's also the right thing to do, because if there's too many pieces in the pieces spread out, and there's too many hands in the pot,
hard to handle.
It's harder to, there's actually tax losses and money loss.
Okay.
through mismanagement of advice, right? So if your accountant's not talking to your lawyer, and the lawyer's not talking to the investor, and the investor's not talking to the insurance person, all these people are making
And you
decisions
like
with your money and life, but I'm basically the foundation between all of those people.
And you like to have those conversations with everybody.
Yeah.
You're
exactly.
you're involved with as much as you're able to be.
Yeah, so it's not just financial advice is not just about investments.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of different pieces. Like
Yeah.
I'm life insurance license as well, so like that's a big piece of insurance planning.
And that part of it, do you enjoy that part of your job?
Yeah, because that's when so most of the time the sexy stuff that you're talking about, like people like to talk about is like the investments and all that stuff, like, which is I really like it. But you do need to eventually, if you do bring in a client, as an example of when I bring in a client, that's when the real work actually begins. Because now if they transfer assets to you and you're starting to make improvements on the portfolio or do anything like that, now you're getting paid to do the work going forward. So you need to you have to have a process to be able to go through the next steps. So like in the first years, like I'll be meeting with clients, depending on the complexity, but like probably once at least a month or once a quarter until the end of the year, until we have everything optimized and kind of built out so that we have a checklist going forward. So it's not like once I get the assets of this person's entire estate, I don't just sit on it. I have to be like, let's go through life insurance.
Give
planning.
them peace of mind.
Yeah.
What are the people like that get cold feet 12 months into working?
Like they just don't want to meet anymore. They don't.
They get scared. Like, do I do this right? Do you get those people? Like,
I think I do a really great job at giving peace of mind.
Yeah,
Because
that's awesome.
that's-
That's a great answer, man.
Yeah.
That was very great. I almost set you up for failure there, not even thinking about that question. That was a really good answer.
I did not think about that question because I've actually never had that situation happen.
I watched it in your eyes. I was like, well, that's never even happened to me.
Yeah.
So what's your future plans for you? For planning for expand it?
Yeah, so I am looking at in the new year after I get through my tax season because it's the heaviest, at bringing on like an assistant, and then I do have a 7-year plan as well. Like I have a long-term plan for my practice, and kind of what I would like it to look like. But right now it's very early stages. Like it's in 4 years. 4 years in this going forward. 4 years in practice.
Amazing, because it was right after COVID?
Yeah. So during COVID, I was lucky or unlucky enough to be in that real estate arm of things. Where I was a mortgage specialist, so everybody was crazy transactions, and that really burnt me out because I am a relationship person. So it's too transactional. Like you have 14 or 10 mortgages to do by the end of the month, and it's like, here's your mortgage, here's your keys, here's a bottle of wine. Congrats, guys! I gotta go. And then you never see these people. You don't talk to them again.
Those kind of mortgages.
Yeah.
Like it was a wild time.
It was wild.
You probably made some really great money.
Yeah. When I decided to be a mortgage specialist, I made my salary in 6 months. So that was like working as a financial advisor at the bank, and then just going to specialized sales like that. I did make good money, but it was more.
Like you said, it's a burnout.
Oh yeah, especially like I'll have respect for realtors in Chatham-Kent too, because like I would get a call from them at like 11:59 because the deal closes at midnight. And I'm like, I'm in bed. But there was just never shut off when it comes to that stuff. And I was like, by the end of it, I was very burnt out because I missed having relationships with people and knowing the families and having these conversations. And in our business, it's much slower pace. There's no urgency. To make things, unless someone has like a health issue, but like there's no sense of urgency or pressure when it comes to making doing the financial transactions or like bringing in assets or building your practice up.
It's not too often where
you just take your time with people and then do the right thing, and then you have the right conversations with people.
I like that a lot. I was thinking like, I don't know how many times a person has ever said, making good money was cool, but I would rather the relationship. And I think that speaks on your integrity and who you are as a person. Like it was the first time I met you, I was like, because obviously when people are introducing you, you're always like, oh, I wonder how this will go.
Yeah.
Like we got 12 years in between us. And there
Yeah,
was
we had
there
fun
was
with it.
no disconnect. It was like great conversation. Got out for some golf, and I can really appreciate you're very well worded. You explain things well. You don't
Thanks.
make people feel a certain way about themselves. It's
Yeah,
very.
I try to give
I appreciate
simplified answers for most things.
Yeah.
It is usually more complex, but but yeah, I don't ever feel like.
I can appreciate that about you, and I appreciate you making the time today. I know you've got a busy day. I will cut this here.
All right. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. This has been great.
That was
Yeah.
so much fun. Like
Yeah.
that conversation went
That
so
was easy.
quickly.